As always, I am Mr. Drysdale. This is Mr. Eichler. You can find us on Twitter at Rev10D. I am very quiet on Twitter. I post a couple pictures of my cat occasionally. And K. Relksy. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are going to talk about kind of the summation of our last, you said 17 months?
Yeah, that's about that much.
About 17 months of webcast blogs and defensive efforts, so to speak, in our lab environments, basically trying to get better and better at catching what we do, and then, you know, what more advanced people like Mike and Marcello and what they do too. So anyway, in summary, I guess I'm going to turn it over to Kent, but what we're doing up front here is we're going to talk about a lot of the previous materials that we have put together over those last 17 months. In that, all of those things can lay the foundation for where we try to get you by the end of the webcast, which is a functional ELK installation, catching execution, and then getting better iteratively over time. So,
which is it, because the whole idea is that you want to be able to catch the bad guy in your network. Now, ideally, you'd want to be able to stop him, right? But if you can't stop him, which is getting increasingly more difficult, why not just try to find out as soon as you can when they were on your network? And that's kind of what we're looking at here, is we're going to try to catch the escalated movements and the lateral movements and the activity that a hacker might do on a network. So John Strand's quote here is that you're going to be hacked. It will not be over quickly, and you're not going to enjoy it, and to be prepared. So that's kind of past the point that you've stopped them. It's now that, yeah, you got hacked, and what are you going to do about it now?
And each of these links, things we discuss, has a link to either the webcast, the blog, whatever we're talking about, what we're referencing. So from an executive problem statement perspective, there's a lot of content. I would say there's 10 webcasts, so that's 10 hours of your time. Jason, can you confirm that we've been going back and sort of time stamping these webcasts with interesting points so that you can kind of bounce through them?
So the last 10 months of webcasts, if you go to them on the YouTube channel, I'll drop it in a link, is that you can see the time code and you can jump right to those spots in those webcasts. So you can go to the actual topic that you want. And that was feedback from an attendee at ShmooCon last year, where she said, sometimes I just want to jump to the thing I want to learn. And that's why we did it.
Excellent. Yeah. And it's been very valuable, right? That helps us too, as we jump back into these webcasts, trying to find a thing and then go from there.
So this is interesting. Why are we doing this? And we've been doing this for quite a while now. And by this, I mean, why are we on webcasts all the time? Why is John doing webcasts all the time? Why are so many people at BHIS presenting information to the community? And I guess from that perspective, we're not getting a whole lot out of it. If you want to say at BHIS, oh, well, they're just, they're doing it for sales. We're not really selling anything in these. A lot of webcasts you go to, they're selling a product or whatever, and half the time it's about that, and that's not what we're doing. We're trying to make the industry that we work in more prepared, and it is kind of altruistic for us. Our goal here is to produce better and more effective logging efficiently, right? So that we're not wasting time trying to figure out how to do this. So we can present something to you that says, here's how you do this, get it done quickly, and we're putting time into it so that you don't have to. We're doing it using open source and well-documented items to do that. So yeah, you can go out and buy big name products, and it in theory might save you time and effort. Ironically, a lot of those big products use a lot of open source backends. So we're kind of skipping that, and we're doing something that's used using open source tools. Now, some of the tools we use aren't open source, right? Windows Event Log, it's not open source, but it's part of Windows. So, that's the caveat there. And the whole reason we're doing this is to make the world a better place, and we want to do that together. And in terms of how we do this, we're still working for BHIS, and we're not putting a lot of our work time into this. We're doing this late nights. We're sacrificing for the community, and it's a hat tip to this open source community, because we realize what people put into the open source community, and it's not on part of their day-to-day job. A lot of that open source community is working evenings and nights, away from their family,
with very minimal kickbacks, so to speak, kickbacks. There was a story about the guy who wrote OpenSSL not that long ago, who requested some financial support and got like $11. Even though it's in every single major platform product ever in the history of ever. But anyway, that's a lot of late nights. I'm more of a morning person. I can't make it much past 11 or 12, but I do like being up at 5 a.m.
Don't want to talk about it.
No, definitely not.
All right, let's get on with this.
So I guess from a getting started perspective, this isn't necessarily solving a problem. And why isn't this solving a problem? If you go read the Verizon data breach report, at this point in US and global IT, logs are not how people are detecting adversarial action on their networks, right? You're usually getting a call from the FBI saying, hey, you were processing credit cards, those credit cards, we pointed all these customers back to you, so you didn't really do a great job of catching bad behavior on your network. We are trying to, I guess, shift that paradigm that you can catch your own adversaries when they break into your network and I guess improve that.
From an IR perspective, even if you catch them, you can't stop them. The fact that you're going to have all of this data, this evidence in one place, it's going to be huge. It's really going to impact the amount of damage that you can sustain, because when someone does come in and help you with this, you're going to have all this in one place. You might need help sorting through it and making sense of it, but just because you didn't catch it real time, you're going to be able to much better handle the management of that crisis.
So this was a webcast we did following up with Attack Tactics 5 and 6, which is, okay, we built a contrived environment that included an OWA and a VPN, and we broke in and we used crack map exec and basically pillaged the place, and then we sent some fish and we got Cobalt Strike beacons all over the place. And we basically demolitioned the environment intentionally via contrived means. But afterwards, we couldn't really find all of the evidence that we wanted to, right? Like we didn't see the Outlook logs where we do credential validation using Atomizer from Marcello or Mail Sniper from Bo. But this effort here kind of put together all of the detections and the evidence we needed on our Windows endpoints as a follow-up to destroying an environment.
That was the webcast where I think I went in and set off a Cobalt Strike beacon on every system in the network. And then we joked about, like, this is actually going to be really hard to find with default logging.
Yes, exactly. And it's a mess. Like Kerberos, right? You would think Kerberos ticket operations would show up in a log by default. You would want something like that. Or credential validation attempts. You would want those in your logs. At default, they're just not there.
So I think this was last year we did this one, and this was best practice to frustrate attackers. This was not last month, because we did something similar last month. We actually talked about group policies, and we kind of did this in this order for a reason. Yes, it's been a whole year already, but for a lot of this to work, if you have a very messy Active Directory domain, I mean, I guess that's security by obscurity, because an attacker is going to have a heyday trying to find anything. But on the other hand, you're really slowing down your ability to do much in the environment anyway. So we kind of talked about best practices in Active Directory last year, and how to develop Active Directory in such a way and design it in such a way that you can efficiently migrate through the environment. Your support team can find things quickly and they can support the environment quickly. And that's really important. And even the things we talk about today are going to be very difficult if your Active Directory is a mess. And we kind of talked about that last month. If you've inherited a very messy Active Directory, or if you're a conglomeration where you've assimilated other companies and you've just brought their domain into the forest rather, it can get really messy, and it's important to make sure you have good hygiene in Active Directory to take care of that. So that's kind of what we're getting at here. Go back and watch that webcast if you're in that environment that is kind of a mess. There's some really great ideas on how to handle that.
Yeah, it also talks about, right, like testing your own password hygiene. Mm-hmm. Like I loved that slide in here where it shows you how to use not necessarily Atomizer, but Mail Sniper, right? You can go, or domain password spray, your own environment. So if employees have winter 2019 or winter 2020 is coming up, December 2019, December 19 bang, all these things that we're going to try initially to get in. So there's a lot of discussion here, not necessarily about the group policies, which was one of my favorite webcasts just in research, but this is an interesting webcast in that it is a broad perspective of how to configure Active Directory from our perspective, from an adversarial perspective, to make it hard on us. So anyway, let's move on. And then AT5, Attack Tactics 5. This was a really fun one for us in that we got to take down our environment, right? We had interns helping us do things and click on things and break things. And
I feel bad for our Windows lab that's still out there that has lasted almost a year and has been pillaged and destroyed and been an attack surface for everything we do. It's getting to be a mess in there. We're going to have to rebuild next year.
Absolute disaster. I pinged Egypt last night about 11 o'clock and asked, hey, dude, I'm getting some alerts. Are you in our lab right now, like pillaging the place? No? Oh, okay. Well, I got to do IR in the lab real quick. Thanks.
Real quick.
Yeah, really quick. But we have the logs we need. We have Elastic. It's pretty quick and easy to go figure out where the source machines are and where the stuff is coming from. So, yes, this lab is a mess at this point. But
so where we're going with this is we're kind of going back and looking at the different things we've done to defend and attack networks, because that's all going to be relevant in what we're actually going to talk about today. So,
oh, this is amazing. There's a really interesting point in here. John used to talk about his, I don't want to call it a body double, but a doppelganger, so to speak. And then they had some, back and forth tiffs about it. One of them is an underwear model, apparently. This is a real thing, like John Strand underwear model versus John Strand hacker. So this guy's suggesting you go Google John Strand, it autofills underwear. Anyway, it's brilliant. So then in AT&CK, John basically kicked us out and said, you're not involved. We are going to do this again. I am going to do this again from a perspective of all of the things you did and where indicators of compromise should have triggered me as a blue teamer to catch you as an adversary. So AT&CK was the follow-up to us destroying an environment with all these tools and whatever techniques we used. So he talked about canary tokens and what two-factor is, why that matters to you, how it can improve your life, obviously. User behavioral analytics. So anyway, this is another great webcast, all John and AT&CK, but
let's have about chat about ELK. I think it works for so many.
It sure does, doesn't it? Did we miss the salt and pepper? Is that coming up?
No, it was the very first slide.
Oh, fair enough. Should we go back?
No, we should not go
fair
back.
enough.
Always forward, never straight.
Further. FURTHUR. Okay, so then, go ahead, Kent. You want to talk about this one? We were looking for a great place to take a picture, and that just didn't work out.
So this is the webcast where I didn't have hair, I believe. And we talked about all the blue teams that we were kind of at in that position, and it was interesting. Things that we could do and couldn't do, and how we could catch things and how we couldn't catch things, and how we could defend, how we couldn't defend. And it quickly became obvious that you can catch all this really, really easy by logging like everything. And then you ran into like, cool, awesome, there's a cost against that. And then it's like, you can defend everything by shutting everything off, but then you don't make any money as a business, right? So you had to identify what your acceptable risk was. And you could or could not practice paralyzing paranoia. And that's where you lock everything down to such a point that you can't do anything at all. And we talked about in blue team, man, I can't even say that word now.
Blue Team-Apalooza or Blue Team Defensery?
Defensery sounds way better. What were we thinking?
Yeah, indeed.
So
regardless.
We talked about bringing information to your C-level and asking them certain things about, for example, password policy. Our password policy is only 8 minimum characters. How can we, get that higher? It needs to be up to 15 or 20. And we talked about ways we could talk to your C-level and make that happen. But the point was they had to be your friend, because they were going to the board and cabinet to help you do that. And of course, assume compromise, which is never a fun one to do.
And you did bring up another point that has been asked in here, and that's scale, right? How do you handle the scaling of logs? And again, when you're talking about open source solutions, right, Elastic has ran into this. So now you can cluster your Elastic stuff. You just need to throw resources and time at building your cluster, properly configuring all of your alerting and monitoring. And so it's time. 40,000 disparate systems. John talks about that in one of these upcoming slides here, where, ingest is difficult in that, we can look at Windows logs, except Windows logs doesn't stick to syslog standardization. Your Cisco routers, they chose their own stuff. NetFlow data, completely different. All of these things coming into a central repository can be an absolute disaster. So then we kind of got going on Sysmon. Once we figured out that Windows logging really just sucks out of the box. It takes time and effort to configure. And then installing Sysmon, we get about I don't know, 90% of what we want.
Yep. It's interesting, as we went through, we said this is about 17 months or so, and just seeing how things have changed in 17 months, the stuff is now being brought up, and you'll hear BHS talk about Sysmon in pretty much every webcast now, because we really want people to go to that way. And again, it's open source, but the point is that we found a tool that makes sense and is working.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So this was a fun webcast too, in that he deploys Sysmon, shows you the group policy for deploying it in 5 minutes, demonstrates Applocker, locking things down, catching all that stuff, and really discussing what we just talked about, in that all the disparate nature of logs is hard, but
I made, in pre-show banter, I made the comment to John, I was like, yeah, you said you could do this all in 5 minutes. And he says, well, I can do Sysmon in 5 minutes. The rest of this, we kind of talked about this earlier, like why BHS is putting all this time into this, and it's not easy. I mean, we've spent a ton of time just to get screenshots for this webcast, and to get to the point that we might be able to do a demo in the webcast. And the reality of it is, doing this is not 5 minutes. Sysmon is 5 minutes if you watch the webcast, and can quickly do things and have all the files prepared. But the rest of this, it's not that easy, and you really have to, there's not a lot of tutorials out there that say do this, do this, do this, and do this. Or there might be, and they don't work as prescribed. And it's very interesting in that nature that it's not 5 minutes. And to get to the point where we are now, it's taken us 17 months of webcasts and all the research behind that.
And how many intern hours on all that?
Oh, plenty.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. So regardless, Sysmon and ELK has accomplished 80 to 90% of our mission. Enabling TGT monitoring and Kerber roasting and some things on Exchange, PowerShell transcription. These things have really kind of capped off and got us to about 95 to 97% of what we want to see when we execute things in networks. So then John, again, this is part 2 of his Sysmon Applocker ELK, where he is really, he's diving into, I think, ELK in this webcast. Am I wrong? One of these two is on ELK, where he demonstrates.
I don't think it was this one, but it was. I do like the fact that he said, using Applocker, 95% of the bypasses are going to fail, and it's interesting from that perspective. And I think the point comes down to logging is still really important. And like last webcast, I said log everything, which is really cool because we can do that now in terms of space. But when you actually start to look at the ability to ingest that and find what's important, it becomes much more difficult. And that's where Sysmon comes into play. It's where the ElastAlert comes into play that we're going to talk about later.
Okay, so I think we're at a good place. CJ, Jason, questions, anything you guys want to address here at this point?
I see his lips moving.
You're on mute, CJ.
Oh, he's not. There we go.
There we go.
All right, mate.
No problem.
So as far as detecting specific techniques, so this user's asking specifically about attacker dumps Active Directory hash database by a volume shadow copy.
That is awesome. We will actually get there to that very exact thing, and that is the goal, right? And we're going to show you how we have gone through the rinse repeat process using the Atomic Red team. Red Canary has built a tool that really can show you the way to using ELK, whatever, Splunk maybe, whatever your detection mechanisms are. The Atomic Red team can supplement your efforts in getting you to that next level of catching people and bad things before they happen, right? You are going to execute these commands and you're going to see them show up in your dashboards. It's going to give you the indicators of compromise you need to go start your IR processes. This is going to start you down the path of executing dangerous things on your network in a very controlled manner so that you can continually improve your logging, your alerting, and your fixing.
I do like the comment someone made that if you have a 100 gigabit network interface that's full, you can very quickly fill up your log, your ability to ingest logs.
I don't know a whole lot of companies until you get up to, I don't know, Fortune 100.
It's a lot of data.
50,000 AAD account. I can't imagine ingesting 100 gigabits per second on a network.
Yeah, that's
making forwarding decisions as a device.
Yeah,
that's just crazy, man.
To have a tap that's ingesting that much is a beefy system behind that.
Like the Naris 700.
Yeah.
Anybody seen that? Anyway, CJ, what else you got?
Yeah, someone asked about anything you got on speccing these systems out for performance. The guy tried it at home, said it's pretty demanding.
Our lab is small, 35 workstations, a few servers, random things going on all the time, right? Kent's white noise script, which is making constant requests for websites in the Alexa 100. And
I think we agree, ELK is hungry.
Yeah, it is. And we deployed it with 10 gigabytes of RAM.
Yep.
And for that system, I haven't had any I had some trouble with it initially, of course, troubleshot some stuff, and it's running really effectively at this point. But, you know, scale is everything.
We got Security Onion to work well. We tap all of our taps went to Security Onion. We got to the point that we really couldn't handle that running virtualized. We actually had to run it on bare metal. And at that point, it could handle things fairly well, but we know we're still missing things. And that was with running Brill on our taps and everything. So it can get, I mean, that's with 64 gigs of RAM and a spinning disk. That might be the problem, but it still gets hungry pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
The cool thing is with ELK, you can go down, I believe it's under the status page. We'll tell you some information about if there's delay on writing channels or writing alerts to channels. And that way you can kind of get an idea, but to get to that point, you really have to start and kind of grow from there. So.
And then Jordan, anything on any resources you're aware of on ELK in the AWS or equivalents? Or?
Oh, holy cow. I would treat that as if the SpecterOps crew hasn't deployed an AMI that is pre-configured for ELK, I would treat my deployment of ELK on AWS as I'm going to go get a beefy EC2 instance, and I'm just going to do exactly what I did on-prem.
It's going to be expensive.
It is going to be very expensive, yeah.
I think that's why we ended up, purchasing equipment to do this on-prem. I suppose in reality, we spend a lot of money on electricity, but air conditioners are good too.
Yeah, exactly. Are we good? Are we about caught up? Keep rolling.
Lots of questions, but you guys are going to have to roll.
Okay, no problem. So then this was honestly one of our most popular webcasts. This was so much fun to research, and it's created a ton of work going forward for us. Yep. Right? We're going to break this out into here's our tiny environment, here's an attack, and here's a group policy that kills that. So we're going to try to drop 5 to 6 minute videos on that whole chain individually. So there's a lot more to come out of this one, but this was one of my favorite and personally most valuable webcasts.
And there's more to come on that because we listed off like the top, we said like 5, 10, 15, it got huge of all the different attacks we wanted to cover that could be stopped with group policy. I think those are going to end up being smaller webcasts or smaller videos we're going to post because there's so many, we just can't get through them all.
Yeah, and then a number of blogs we used. I was referencing a blog from 2017 written by Derek, who, has gone through and identified a whole bunch of interesting Windows event IDs. I referenced both of John's blogs on Sysmon, Applocker, using the ELK deployment from Cyber War Dog, who's SpecterOps. Huge props on that effort. I would personally believe it not to be an alpha project at this point and that it's moving into beta. Not sure if there's been a lot of effort put forth recently, but it is functional to our needs. The Sysmon configuration stuff. Event forwarding guidance. IAD.gov, for those of you unfamiliar, IAD.gov is a GitHub maintained by the Information Assurance Directorate or Directive. This is taxpayer-funded coding provided by the government, basically. So check out this GitHub repo. There's a ton of fun things on there. They try to do a really nice job of getting stuff together for the benefit of cybersecurity operators, essentially.
This is yours. So, okay. Hey, we made it past part 1. Okay, so we're going to look at Windows Event Logging. We've already talked about them in the past, right? It's just terrible, but it works. And the great thing is it's almost free because you have to have Windows. In previous webcasts, we talked about using Sysmon to run on your workstations to catch things. Other good options are OS Query and Waza. They each capture things differently, but still can be used in a similar way to capture things. When we go forward from here, we're looking mostly at Sysmon, though. Windows Event Log Forwarding can take the event logs from one workstation and send them off to your data, your domain controller, or maybe to a system that does nothing but that, because it can get really
noisy.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're using Winlogbeat, either on each workstation, which can also get noisy, or from where you're sending those event logs to, and then sending those to another place. And where do you send them to? There's some options out there. ELK. We're looking at ELK, which has some pre-built signatures in it. Also, Security Onion has pre-built signatures that also have signatures for Sysmon. So there's different options out here. The thing you can see that's consistent here is the amount of that this stuff costs, and that's 0, right? It doesn't cost anything to do these things. They're open source for the most part, with exception to Windows event log forwarding, Windows event log itself. And then now we're also going to talk about the ElastAlert, and going forward also the Atomic Red Team and how that plays a part.
Absolutely. Somebody just made a point that NXLog, I also deployed that in accordance with Derek's blog. So you do have to, once you get things to your subscription destination, which is where your Windows Event Forwarding is sending logs, you do have to pick those up and then ship them to your ingester. So NXLog, Winlogbeat, there's other things that can do that, but yes, that's a very valid point. So let's introduce the Atomic Red Team. For those of you who have not seen this utility, this was introduced to me by Carrie Roberts, who is a wizard at all things, smartest person alive as far as I'm concerned at this point, and basically allows us to run a whole bunch of checks against the MITRE attack framework. Are we interested in a particular APT and catching all of their efforts? Let's say we're in the aerospace industry and there's 3 or 4 APTs that target aerospace. We can use the Atomic Red Team to pick up those APT techniques and then run them in our environment and then fine tune the optics we have against those specific attacks. You can also go another way and just take a specific technique, a T, like T1003, which is credential dumping, and then figure out how we can catch, see, witness, all of those things.
So the goal here is to take Atomic Red Team so you can simulate those attacks. And I shouldn't say it's just simulate. It's actually doing the attacks.
It's actually
going to do the exploits. But the whole purpose of doing those is so that you can test your logging and your alerting and see that, yes, the Atomic Red Team completed successfully. Here's the output of that. I was able to run the exploit successfully. So that's a test of your controls. And then the next part is to test whether or not you're able to capture that in logging. So were you able to capture just the detail in logging? That's not Atomic Red Team doing that. We're just using Atomic Red Team to help us simulate those exploits or run those exploits. And then the rest of the framework we've built with different open source tools are helping us get to the point that we can now use Atomic Red Team to run the exploit, use all these other different tools to get to the point where we've got that in an interface where we can now look at it and alert off of it, right? And then if you missed it, then you can make some changes to your logging and go back and run the Atomic Red Team again, make sure you get that successful response, and then check your logging. And you're able to tweak your logging very, very quickly that way.
Absolutely. So again, simple, easy to execute, improve your detections in accordance with MITRE attack. Big shout out here to the Red Canary crew. Some of them showed up at our talk at B-Sides Denver, which was awesome. This is a great crew. Give them follow on Twitter, whatever, however you ingest, give them a shout out. These people are doing amazing things. They're making the world a better place for sure. So one-liner install. I execute this stuff as an administrator on our network. That's fine, but you don't have to, right? You can execute these things as user level to, again, detect your detections. I'm not sure how to say that, Inception style. And I absolutely do not use Atomic Red Team on a red team, because to change, modify, and tweak what happens in there, you're gonna have to, I don't know, edit 30 YAML files on some of these attacks, right? If T3 is, or T1003 is credential dumping, it may execute 9 different checks. You've got to modify all those to make sure they're doing the right thing and that they're quiet, right? We're on a red team, so I don't know. No, this is a blue team tool at this point. This is an offensive, defensive tool.
It'd be very noisy for a red team.
If you want to get caught, this is how you will use it.
I suppose with an internal penetration test maybe, or a pivot test or C2, but in general, I don't think you'd be used as a red team because it's going to be very noisy. And the whole goal of this, in our use case, is we're running this to catch ourselves running it. So, the idea that you'd use it for a red team would be down the wrong path, I suppose.
Yeah, indeed.
It was an easy install then. Did it just work? Was it a 5-minute install?
This was a 47-second install.
And everything past this now we're invoking, right?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to look at some more details. But this is a very, very cool attack too, the Squibbly Doo, right? Now we're trying to get past all the Applocker, application whitelisting. We're seeing what you can execute in your environment.
So T1117, that is a component in Atomic Red Team that you can run and now run over and over and over again, right?
Absolutely. Until you're catching this execution and being able to attribute the execution of reg-serve 32 against a DLL, identify the system, get it back to your alert dashboard, and make your life better, right? Get out in front of, okay, someone executed something dangerous. They're trying to move laterally now. We need to go do IR on that system.
Got it. So T117 is in the catalog of attacks or exploits.
Yep.
And obviously, if that's 117, there's a lot of them.
That's 1,117. I believe these start at T1001.
So at least 117. And this was somewhere in the middle.
Oh, yeah, I see your point. Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of attack options in there. And we will say don't run all of them, because one of them, I think you told me about this, one of them will actually, delete the master boot record?
Yeah,
and then
manipulate them. Yes, manipulate the master boot record, and then
don't put that one in a group policy.
Yeah, and then reboot. So farewell, unless if you're running in a VM, excellent. Otherwise, say goodbye. So we catch this, right? We now have ELK running or HELK or whatever you're doing, and we can see it.
Okay, so went from, we ran the exploit with Atomic Red Team.
Yep.
We then used Sysmon to monitor the system, which dumped the log of this into an event log, which we then used Windows Event Forwarder to push it to another system. And then we used that system with Winlogbeats to put it into HELK. And then we have HELK looking for Sigma. Not yet?
Not yet. Nope.
Okay, but it's in HELK, and that's where you captured the screenshot.
Yep.
So all those things chained together got us the visibility we needed.
Yep. So we see the execution of reg-serve 32 against a DLL that pops calc, as you can see in that previous screenshot. But we can talk about that a little more. Here's our atomics. Let me get this thing up.
Oh, there's a lot of attacks in there.
Yeah, there's a whole ton, right? Remember, adversarial techniques, map from MITRE, cloning the Atomic Red Team, in theory, installing that on your system, brings in the entire atomics container. These are all checks you can execute. Some of them are Linux, some of them are Windows, some of them are Mac. But as you see, 1, we install, we get the atomics container. 2, we go look at the YAML if we're interested in what's actually going on. And then we run the attack against T1015. And what do we get? This one's really cool, actually. Whoops, another step back.
Hey, you went from Winlogbeat. We talked about that.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So Winlogbeat and WEF, right? So Windows Event Forwarder, we talked about Sysmon dumping into an event log on the local machine.
Yep.
And then we're using Windows Event Forwarder to put it to DC or to your designated collector. And then we're using Winlogbeat to take the data from there and push it over to HELK, ELK, Sysmon, or Security et cetera. These are not the 5-minute setups. Well, specifically,
these are the ones that we stumbled on, figuring out how to put together all the pieces to get the stuff where we wanted to go. So we took 2 steps back there, right? We install the framework, we execute a test, we catch the test, but how did we get there?
So I think interesting here is just kind of talk about the different setup you have to do to make this all work, because you have to have that Windows event log forwarding the Sysmon container, right? But then on top of that, are there other logs you also want in there that you want to go to the same location on Windows event forwarding, or do you want them to go to a different log collector? Do you want them to go to a different HELK? And all that is configurable. And when you first set up, I think is it just looking at security logs when you first set it up, or do you use the Swift on security?
Just looking at application logs, right? Swift on security would be a Sysmon configuration.
Sysmon configuration. And you're using Windows event log, and you have to specify the event logs that you want forwarded, not the event log type IDs, but the actual container they're in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so then now, do we have the thing? Excellent. So T1015 executed OSK, right? An on-screen keyboard, the magnifier, the narrator. Can we execute any of these things? And we get a logging output, right? So this logged.csv file, that is what we see here in output. It tried 5 separate tests. Those separate tests are each hopefully caught and sent to our HELK, Kibana, ElastAlert, processed by all these things, and alert us, let us know what's going on.
So that log is actually the log of Red Team doing its job of simulating attacks.
Correct.
Got it.
As a user, yep. So these are the things in that particular test on the left. These are the output of the execution of that test, and then hopefully our next slide shows us catching that stuff. So then, again, we catch it, we see it, we're doing better. We can attribute it to a specific workstation. Our lives are improving, right? We're catching execution of rare executables. So
Again, this was in Sysmon.
this was in
Sysmon.
this was from Sysmon
Got it. Okay.
to Windows event log, picked up by the subscription and forwarded, grabbed at the forwarder and dumped into Logstash. Logstash processing rules, then put it in our Kibana dashboard appropriately. Log indices.
Yes.
So yes, there's a lot of bits and pieces here. This is not 5 minutes, but we are getting closer to being able to deploy this in a network in a full day. I don't know. How long do you think it would take you at this point?
Not 17 months like it took us.
I would say that's exactly right. Okay, so we are kind of moving along here. Let's take another break here. CJ, what do you got?
Like the stars. So many questions.
We've only got 4 or 5 slides left, so
You guys rock. All right. Why not use OS query versus Sysmon?
I tested OS query, and I don't have any specific reason to choose one or the other. Right? They're both exceptionally effective at what they do, which is catch and provide optics into an endpoint, and that's what we want. Right? OS query ingests are beautiful, just like Sysmon.
Great. Thoughts on log shippers, Winlogbeats, and audit beats?
Yep, we used Winlogbeat. I tried NXLog. FileBeat is similar, yes. You can drop FileBeat on your Linux boxes with an apt install, with whatever. I was immediately seeing my SSH logins, my user stuff. Yes, FileBeat works the same.
Here's where I destroyed my environment when I was doing this. I was like, you know what? It's cool to just ingest Sysmon, but come on, I want to ingest it all. Which works really good unless you don't have things sized appropriately, because you can start tipping stuff over really fast. And I think someone else mentioned that. How do you right size this? And this environment, we right sized it for Sysmon ingestion, right? Mm-hmm. But if you start ingesting everything, you have to have something on the back end that's able to support it, where you will just tip this stuff over, and that's not useful at all. So
I don't think there's an easy answer to that. We had a lot of questions on the scaling, and you gave some indicators. Go to hardware. Right, scaling is a huge challenge, and that's the key of architectures.
The nice thing is, if you are using ELK or ELK or Security Onion, they will tell you how it's doing and how it's recording, right? So you can go into the processing on the Kibana interface, go down to the status, and it will tell you if there's delay on writing things to disk or writing the indexes.
Indices.
And also on Windows, right? The Windows event forwarding will also tell you if there's a delay in it ingesting logs. So if you're using those two, you're going to have an indication whether or not you're right sized or not. I suppose it would be possible that you're going to start, filling networks as well, just the transient networks with data if you start pushing too much.
Yeah, Sean just made an amazing point. Sean, we were blue teamers once, and it's so hard. Oh, it's so hard. I remember shuddering at night. I got the eye twitch really, really bad. Like my right eye would twitch constantly during the day, and I would go home and I would get you relax on the couch and your eye twitch would start. Dude, blue teaming. Yes. It's hard.
Anything on Windows event forwarding, the difficulties when you've got a mobile fleet, right? And that's not working well.
So,
yeah, that's a whole other go ahead.
So we do have an environment similar where we've got a bunch of cloud systems out there for BHIS, and we're dumping those kind of logs into our security onion that we operate. And it's traffic, right? There's a lot of traffic coming in. And the irony about that is those cloud systems, we're monitoring all the traffic on that. So we've got a bro logger there. And every time that sends logs in, we've also got that tapped, so we're generating logs on the logs that are coming in. And then later on in the network, we've got logs that are generating on the logs that are generating on the logs. Ridiculous stuff. But yeah, it's definitely scary, right? My suggestion on that would be to use some sort of failover with load balancing, use multiple IP addresses. Don't use IP addresses, though. Use DNS names, so that if you're on the back end, you have to move your systems. You're not stuck because you used an IP address originally. So use DNS with load balancers. Have a beefy system that can collect it, and have a reliable internet connection to make sure that internet connection is large enough that you can have that data coming in. And then, of course, you're going to have to whitelist that data and probably inspect it to make sure no one found your incoming data, because you're going to have most of the internet open to capture your mobile workforce. So That is kind of scary thoughts. I guess you could whitelist to like all the mobile carriers, but then you're gonna get someone that goes to Starbucks that you're not gonna catch because they're on Starbucks Wi-Fi network, and yeah, that's definitely a consideration there.
Indeed.
Cool.
Keep coming. We got plenty of time.
Patch came up for memory leaks and Sysmon. Any admin tips for how you would update that?
God, of course, that's something complicated. We don't really have to worry about it, so we haven't run into this problem. Thus, we haven't had to come up with a solution for the problem of Sysmon memory leaks. Is it an actively maintained package?
I believe it still is. I would say that we got really good at tipping stuff over, so it doesn't surprise me. My suggestion maybe on that is to every hour run a script that kills Sysmon and restarts it, so that you never get a huge list of memory usage on it. That's not a really great way of handling it, is it? But it's a workaround until, the...
Say what? Jeffrey is claiming that it requires an uninstall reinstall.
Ouch.
Ugly.
Is there a specific Windows build? Is there a patch combination? Is it... Wow. Yeah. Jeffrey, if you've got any way of updating us with what you got, that's terrifying.
We do have some comments coming in about that, so we're going to review those comments after the webinar.
Yeah.
And then we'll respond to the questions when we pulse everything out. We'll kind of aggregate through those and find what's important. Someone might have an answer for us, so I just
in the softball, does ELK have a GUI or it says a user?
Kibana's the dashboard. I can show that off here in just a second too. We can probably buzz through these last couple slides.
All right, I'll let you.
Sweet. Yep. Again, we want to execute something that launches Mimikatz in your environment via PowerShell Cradle. Here you go. Execute T1003. Here's the command, assuming you installed it the same way I did. Dumps to this log thing. We see the log thing. Goes into the Windows event viewer. Captured by Sysmon. Sysmon logs are then picked up by our Winlogbeat or the subscription, sent to our forwarder. Forwarder is picked up, sent into Logstash.
This is different in Mimikatz, right? We could talk about 5 webcasts ago, we talked about running Mimikatz and catching it, right? Well, we caught it just in event logs. This is now running Mimikatz as a system that you can run, check, run, check, run, check, right? So that's kind of what we're getting here. We're now past just Mimikatz, and we're now enveloping that into another system that allows us to check this very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That's T1003.
Yeah, exactly. That's T1003. So then here we go, right? We've got our ElastAlert dashboard. We see these amazing things happening in our environment, and we can go drill into them. What rules are getting flagged by Sigma? How are these alerts kind of rising up in the dashboard? Why? We jump into the Docker, exec framework in Bash, and we look through stuff. So ElastAlert, Sigma, ELK, the whole thing is really improving our ability to see. And this is how I asked Egypt, like, dude, are you doing things in our environment? Because it looks like something is happening that's not me.
The problem is we have so many people in our environment all the time.
Yeah.
I just kind of ran across an interesting comment on the questions, and I think it's worth noting that we didn't write these tools. We have written tools for BHIS, but we didn't write the ones we're talking about today. And if you look at the amount of hours of development time that went into these open source tools, we're just talking about how to implement them in a chain so that you can get a desired outcome. The amount of hours that went into this is huge.
Indeed.
To get to this.
Yeah, to get to this.
To make it meaningful. It's awesome, the amount of effort people have put into it. And I do want to point out Cyber War Dog because he was instrumental.
Absolutely, 100%.
So. Also kind of hard to get a hold of.
So, you tried, huh?
Yeah.
So this may not be the most legible slide, but we are working on how to map all these things in all different manners and scorecards, and Cyber War Dog had already built the scorecard, so we didn't really bother talking about that because it's been done. We really wouldn't be adding much value there, so check out Cyber War Dog's stuff. He does have an article from 2017 on how to implement all the stuff we've talked about essentially with a scorecard.
So I think the next step, and I noticed that blog was from 2017, I believe, that we couldn't find is where it's automated. So we've got now everything set up, right, to the point that we can now get to the point where test, check, test, check, test, check. And our next goal is to say test, check, and eventually you'll get to your scorecard, which says test, check, found, green, right? Then you move on to the next type of item on MITRE ATT&CK. And getting to that's going to be pretty awesome.
Indeed. And we'll jump into a demo of the dashboard here real quick. The Hive. What is the Hive, I wonder? The hive mind. Anyway, we're not really sure if we're a wrap yet, and so we're going to demo a couple things. I'm not even sure how much value we can add by showing off the dashboard. But regardless, right? We execute tests, we catch those things, we improve our endpoint detection response. We do the same thing over again to make sure we're only catching what we're interested in, and false positives aren't blowing up our dashboard, and that we're not getting 3,000 emails when someone, clicks on a link and PowerShell executes. We want to get better. We want to catch what we want to catch, and then improve over time.
Before you start the demo there, Jordan, I want to say this slide is interesting. I was trying to go back and grab all of the webcasts that kind of relate to this, and there's more than just this. This is just where I kind of gave up and stopped making little images. So all of these, if you notice, are screenshots of YouTube, because that's where it's easiest for me to find them. My point being is that we post all this on YouTube, and I always think it's funny on YouTube, they say like subscribe and favorite and all that nonsense. It's because all those videos are monetized. So you have to watch the commercial beforehand. None of these are monetized. And even if they were, they wouldn't be for long, right? I think Google or YouTube would have an issue with it. But going through these, just go to our YouTube. You'll be able to find these. If you've ever got a weekend where you don't have anything better to do, sit there and watch our webcast. I'll say I'm sorry in advance, but you're going to gain a lot of information about what we do, how we do it. Yeah. And you'll kind of get sped up to the point that you'll be able to do this now. If someone was doing this.
My favorite of all screenshots dropped in any deck ever.
Why am I holding these? All of this is just taking so long to get to the point. And I think that's kind of what we're going to reiterate, is it's not 5 minutes to get to this point. It's been months. And if you jump on this webcast saying, hey, I can do this in 5, but you can get there. You just have to have all the background of where we're at.
So ELK and Rita, yes, this is coming, and they are focusing initially on Sysmon ingests. That does not mean that's the only thing. John was trying to get us an advanced alpha copy, but I believe that's another month out.
And I think what's interesting with that is that we've demonstrated now, we've chained all these things together, and it became very clear that I wish there was something that would like put those in a nice wrapped present and make it all work really well. And I think that's going to be our end goal with that distribution, is how can we make this actually make sense without having to spend time on every one of these packages, but instead get it to a point where you can deploy and it works.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know it's going to take a long time for us to get there, but that's our goal on it.
Well, let's see. Live man needs a bag. He does. He does indeed. So, not really sure, how much value you're going to get looking at our dashboard. But here is a Sigma running against the Logstash sets. These are all things that we can now go look at the T's that we've executed and make sure they're valid. Those are free 50 free. It's just like your slide. Should pull that back up. But yes, anyway, like the alert dashboard is beautiful. It helps parse, filter, free.
Almost free for the Windows stuff though.
Almost, yeah, exactly. So then let's see, we're in our functional ELK instance. Some cool stuff. Learn this trick from IPsec. We're going to Docker PS, look at the processes, /big S, and then we can go look at each of the individual Dockers.
Well, why are we talking about Dockers now?
Yeah, right, because this is how ELK deployed itself. And it's beautiful in that initially I thought everything was broken because I didn't see open sockets, but Kafka apparently has forwarders that know what it's doing and pick things up and push them in the right places. Anyway, so we do, let me slow down here. We can show this off for just a sec. Cute. Docker ps.less-s. We want to see our running Dockers in a way that is reasonable enough. We can just click to the right a few times. We can see all the open sockets associated with them. All right, this one must be our Logstash Docker. So we keep going to the right. Now we want to jump into our Logstash. Not really. We're much more interested at this point in what the ElastAlert's doing.
So hold on. So we talked about like chaining all these things together. You're saying inside of ELK, there's a bunch of Dockers that also have to chain together to make it all work.
Ooh, yes.
That chain gets really long.
Yes, that can be an absolute nightmare, can it?
It's a choo-choo chain.
So then we could go look at signals.
That was terrible.
Go ahead. Yeah, that was really, really bad.
Wow.
Like I felt the burn on that one.
Wow.
Ouch.
I feel like you're in the weeds, but the irony is you're not, because if someone's going to set this up, this is kind of
Yeah.
where they have to end up at some point.
Exactly. So then these are all the things we can see under Windows, all the things we can see under Linux, right? A couple people asked about FileBeat, right? We installed FileBeat via apt, so now we can see our Linux stuff and dump that into our log stash, right? For processing in Elasticsearch.
We mentioned it was OSSEC and Wazoo earlier as well. So even more stuff you can dump into your log stack and tell
exactly.
even more.
So let's say we're interested in looking for a specific rule associated with someone executing an XOR encoded something or other, right? So you go in here, we're going to find in this container, and we're going to grep for XOR. What do we get? We get a process creation that involves PowerShell XOR command line. We can cat that file out. We can see what's in there. We can see what the detection mechanism is doing. Let's say we're interested in, I don't know, PowerShell, right? We can go see all these things that Sigma rules are looking for to now move into our ElastAlert dashboard based on ingests.
Got it. So our chain, we kind of talked about stopping between Winlogbeat and ELK or ELK or Security Onion. Between those two is Sigma. Is that correct? That's reading things as they come in, and then
exactly.
So we've got Sysmon doing things to read, and then later on you've got Winlogbeats that are reading the Windows event forwarder. Now you've got Sigma reading the Winlogbeats before it goes into ELK Security Onion.
Exactly.
Choo choo.
Oh, okay, that was another pretty dense webcast where we're telling people to go look at a whole bunch of other pretty dense webcasts.
I want to build a flowchart.
That's a good idea.
I'm going to build the flowchart.
The flowchart of getting this operational while being paid by a company to get this stuff operational as an offensive, adversary is actually amazing in that John wants us legit to become defenders, to sit in your shoes and understand what you go through on a daily basis. So this is where we've ended up. Things are getting better. We're doing better at doing what you do, hopefully on a daily basis, well. Questions? Do we have anything else interesting here?
Do we have more interesting? I will make a comment that on our webcast, there's going to be a CISO that says, none of that was free. None of that was with hours. You're telling me it took 17 months and it was free?
Time is money.
Yeah.
Time is money. That's why we're trying.
Money.
We've set forth this pain to try to get there. So have others in the community,
Yes.
open source community. We're trying to do it where we can minimize that number as much as we can.
Too legit to quit.
Oh, I like this question. Do you see a well-manicured EDR as a replacement for Sysmon/WEF?
I don't know. What's your budget?
So
Windows Defender. Tell me that Windows Defender is not exceptionally effective these days. They have the quote unquote open source intelligence of every Windows 10 deployment on Earth at this point, like pushing data into their cloud for processing, right? So Windows Defender is now operating under the guise that I see all activity on all Windows systems that hits my processing engines.
So you raise an interesting point that when you run Atomic Red Team, was Windows Defender enabled?
No, I had to kill it. Absolutely not. Yeah,
right?
no,
It's going to catch those things.
I tried to install the Atomic Red Team framework with Defender enabled, and it's deleting everything as it's coming in.
So then the question becomes, well, if I have Windows Defender, do I need to even do any of this? I have Windows Defender.
Well, hopefully.
The idea is that,
Good luck.
Because we didn't try to do anything that would bypass it, right? Bypass Defender, because it can be bypassed. I think that's what's important to state here is Atomic Red Team doesn't try to do anything to bypass this stuff, but it's bypassable. And that's what BHIS does on their engagements all the time, is bypass the fact that you have AV. If we can get past that, then we can still run our exploits.
Yeah.
So you still want to do this because you want to catch the exploits as they run, even if the attacker was able to get bypass AV.
Yeah, and I've seen the ATP so many times in this comments section that it's worth talking about. Advanced threat protection is an incredibly expensive tool that is incredible at what it is tasked to do, which is see everything adversaries do on your network. I mean, it was it Derek that ran up against an ATP network? They saw everything he did. I mean, there was it didn't miss anything, basically. But yes, cost, dollars.
Ruben, the flowchart. When we post on the blog, we'll make sure we have a flowchart in there for you because I realized, and maybe a picture of a choo-choo train, and that's how I'll make it.
I don't like that. CJ does not.
Maybe
like
a switch yard. Maybe a switch yard, not a choo-choo train.
Yeah.
Guys never go linear.
It'll be a kill chain.
Ooh.
A reverse kill chain.
Yeah, say that.
A life chain?
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Preferences between ELK and Security Onion.
Kent absolutely loves Security Onion because of the other integrations it has. I have not played with Security Onion a whole lot. Installation is easy. They come with custom ISOs. It's ready to ingest packet data. It's ready to ingest log data. It's got pretty dashboards.
Yep. So Security Onion was useful in the fact that even with ELK, right? There's back-end signatures that are put on ELK. They're both built on ELK. So if you look at it from that perspective, but Security Onion has a lot of other features in it. They've got the Wazoo receiver in it, so you can run Wazoo on Linux and Windows, and it can ingest those logs and then make sense of those logs. Security Onion also does PCAP analysis, so if you've got it with a mirror on the Security Onion system, it'll actually capture attacks as they happen, and then you can pull up the attack and the associated PCAP with it. So it's great from an IR perspective that way. ELK does not do that. So from the perspective of our demo here, we didn't need all that, and if we did it, it would just make our headaches that much worse in trying to get this to a working fashion. Because like I said, I got really great at tipping this thing over. But from that note, we use Security Onion to monitor all that stuff anyway, because where I said we have those taps, right? They're getting bro capture, but we're also using Security Onion to build all of those PCAPs for us. So any attack that hits us, we're generating a PCAP of it that we can go back and later look at and investigate. Now,
that is a great point right here.
And that system is huge. So you talk about right sizing, you think about all that traffic we're doing, and we have to capture it and make PCAPs on it. It's massive.
Yep. And one more thing. Go ahead, CJ. You got something on your mind too.
No, you guys got 1 minute, so apologies to all the great questions we didn't answer.
This individual just made the point that we are trying to make. He made it really, really effective. So using ELK and Sysmon in time well spent, right? So we're investing resource capital expenditure to deploy ELK, Sysmon, capture these things. We are switching from learning about incidents and how to handle them to, hey, we had an incident we caught. Let's talk about the lessons we learned from the incident and move on. Right? Instead of, holy crap, we're in and we've got some serious trouble. There's been somebody on our network for 2 months. To, hey, look, somebody got in, we caught them, we shut down the box, we did our memory forensics, and we can do our wrap up. What lessons did we learn?
How awesome is that IR report when you can say, look, we have all the logs, as opposed to how
they got in, we caught them, they executed a thing, we caught it, they did not escape the box, here's our wrap up.
Real quick, ELK versus ELK, why?
ELK doesn't have any signatures pre-written.
It does not. There's no Sigma, no ElastAlert integration. Cyber War Dog made this really nice for us.
With Sysmon.
Really easy. Yep.
So that's kind of why I looked at ELK. ELK has that, and it's actually hunter ELK, right? So it's made
hunting
for hunters.
ELK. Yep. This is a threat hunting ELK installation.
ELK is awesome for a SIM, but there's no signatures pre-built, right? So you're going to be spending all that time building signatures. Whereas Security Onion has generalized signatures built, so you can index, and once you have indexed, thank you, CJ.
What's up? We got people who got to go to the next meeting.
Yep. Any final words?
Webcast.
Any final words?
Really appreciate everyone.